Middle-earth Tales, Volume 2, 44 Fireflies Follow 14 Fairies from Forlond to Fanghorn Forest.
This tale may have started in the beginning of the Second Age, or maybe it was the end of the First Age. I don't think it was the Third Age, but all these ages confuse me anyway. At that time, whenever it was, the Ents, maybe even Treebeard himself, sent an urgent message throughout all Middle-earth in search of fireflies. Evil Crebanes from Mordor had killed all but a handful of their precious fire beetles. If you're not familiar with Ents, they are creatures from Fanghorn Forest, but a few still live in the old forest. They are 3/4 human and 3/4 tree. Treebeard is their leader. They are the keepers of the forest and friends to all three peoples in Middle-earth, but they are mortal enemies of the denizens of Mordor. They may be the oldest creatures in all of Middle-earth, though some say that Tom Bombadil is the same age as Treebeard. Ents can live forever, but they need Sprill to continue living without aging to the point that they cannot move. Fireflies transport the Sprill from one end of Fangorn to the other and know exactly where to place it. Hence, the danger of having a wee firefly population. Also, Sprill is a good source of nutrition for the fireflies. Fireflies are interesting creatures, as they only fly when it is dark and announce themselves with a blinking light. Fireflies are very prolific at reproduction. This is a good thing, because the flashing light also attracts many predators. A normal, unprotected flock of fireflies has about the same number of fireflies eaten as they have babies born. Many expeditions tried and failed to get enough fireflies to Fanghorn Forest, and many of the Ents were aging quickly. A group of fairies from Forlond rounded up a bunch of fireflies and were determined to make the journey to help the Ents. A bit about fairies. You know, fairies are mythical creatures. Many don't believe they exist. However, they did exist, at least for this tale. They are practically invisible to the naked eye and are very happy and playful creatures. Fairies never die. Some say that hundreds of them could sit on the edge of a knife. Others say they are about the size of a blue jay. Except for being mostly invisible, they have limited magical powers. At the beginning of this adventure, there were 44 fireflies led by 14 fairies. I won't go through all their names, but the most important fairies are Elliot Greypuff. He was the leader of the group, or at least he thought he was. Mauve Wondersocks was the oldest female, and took care of anyone's wounds and hurts. Rhubarb Dayfruit was the strongest fairy on this adventure, and was the hero of the Battle of Rohan. Daphne Chiliheart. She is very arrogant and thinks she's the queen of all fairies. Most just ignore her rantings. However, she did form the circle of protection in the attack of the Patu. Of the 44 fireflies who started this journey, only 7 survived. Blabskito, Beedtile, Pengopus, Woolplexi, Zauxiroch, Clinaros2, and Little Aline. So, let's get on with our tale. It is dusk as the tale begins. The fireflies and fairies gather in the woods just north of Forlond. Forlond is a harbour that lay on the northern shore of the Gulf of Loon, in the elvish land of Forlond. However, Forlond is primarily occupied by stout men. It is known for its great shipbuilding production. At the southern end of Forlond, where the Gulf of Lune meets Belagea, the Sundering Seas, giant men and oxen aid the merchant vessels in navigating the shallow waters. The trading ships do not unload their cargo here, as they journey 200 miles north to Greyhaven, or Mithlond as it is known in Elvish. At the hour of eve, at the lighting of candles, you can hear the fireflies begin to assemble. The fairies, as usual, are a bit late in arriving. On the first day, well, actually fireflies only travel by night to avoid predators. So day is night and night is day for most of this legend, as you will see. As I was saying, on the first day, this gathering of travelers plan to journey to Mithlond for good crossing of the mighty River Lune, and continue through the Tower Mountains to the tiny River Lorry, and spend the night, day. For day is night and night is day. Elliot Greypuff, the ostensible leader of this pack, announces that it is time to journey forth. The excursion to Mithlond was largely uneventful, and they make good time with the northerly winds. The Grey Havens is a seaport on the Gulf of Lune, at the mouth of the River Lune, in western Eriador. Founded by the elves of Linden in SA1, the Grey Havens were known for their good harbourage, and many ships unload their consignment at their great docks. It seems there is a festival every day. I think I hear one now. As they leave the city and cross the river, they approach the Tower Hills, or Eminbiraid in Elvish. The Tower Hills are a range of hills at the west end of Eriador. They lay east of Mithlond, the Grey Havens of Linden, and west of the far downs of Weymouth, the border of the Shire. High upon the Tower Hills stands 3 tall elven towers, the White Towers. The towers act as a klaxon to warn Eriador, Codolan, and Endwaith of intruders from the west. They could easily be heard in the Shire. If they rang once, as it did now, strangers were coming. 2 rings were a warning, and 3 or more meant danger. As the Tower Hills began getting larger, they soon became the Tower Mountains. So, our little group made their way through the meandering pathway toward Emlo-Brirad. Emlo-Brirad is a curious little hamlet inhabited mostly by men, although there are a few elves, hobbits, and halflings. There is also an ancient orc, who does nothing but drink and sleep. There is nothing but a walking trail leading to it from the Greenway, so they have very little trade, if any, from neighboring settlements. The town consists of 2 very fine blacksmiths, 2 seamstresses, and 2 churches. The hobbits in the village look for jewels at the base of the mountains, or scratch farm, in the mostly barren land to feed the village. These men are not at all religious, so the churches go unused, except for 1 day a year. On Eggleway's Day, all work in the hamlet stops and the men, elves, hobbits, and halflings clean and paint the churches. 1 white, 1 pink. Although there is no trade from neighboring settlements, Rowan warriors, the Rohirrim, come several times a year for the excellent horseshoes, shields, and swords that the blacksmiths make. As daylight approaches, the weary travelers start to snooze in the trees outside the village. The village awakens. Today's journey? Well, tonight's journey. For day is night and night is day. Tonight's journey will take us across Eriador to Forbad, which is the only crossing of the mighty Gwaflo River into Endwaith. With a little luck, our pack of travelers should have no trouble making it to Helm's Deep by daybreak if they follow the Green Way and the north-south road. Endwaith is covered by an almost continuous forest, with the exception of the great fens of the Swan Fleet. While Dunland is sparsely populated with gentle men, a large flock of dangerous Crebanes live in and around Dunland. An hour after they cross into Endwaith, Little Aline, the smallest of the Fireflies, calls out loudly,
I think I saw a Patu.
Now, a Patu is a rapacious bird that loves to eat fireflies. Elliot Greypuff and Rhubarb Day Fruit quickly explored the surrounding area, but could not see anything, so the group continued forward. Suddenly, they are attacked not only by the Patu, but by at least 2 flying lizards. This is especially disturbing as flying lizards are known assassins, usually hired by Sauron. The word is out. The most malevolent regions of Middle-earth have now heard about this expedition, and nefarious creatures will try to stop it, for there must be a substantial bounty. As the battle rages, Daphne Chillyheart cries out,
Fairies, quickly form a circle above the Fireflies and fly as fast as you can. Faster, 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 faster.
And thus she formed the circle of protection. The Patu and the lizards could no longer see the Fireflies and assumed them all dead, so they left. The tired and wounded coterie settled on the cold ground to lick their wounds, rest, and come up with a new plan. Mauve Wonder Socks flew among them, healing their cuts and bruises and their spirit. Rhubarb Day Fruit, who knew this area better than most, told Elliot Greypuff,
We cannot make it to Helm's Deep tonight. We've lost 30% of our fireflies. Let's fly south to London and let them make a few more babies. Also, we'll have the Guntherlo flow on our right flank for protection.
Elliot agreed.
Nagion Yat Kost zu Nun.
London used to be a very beautiful city. Well, it still is, but nobody lives there. No one really knows what happened. Was there a plague? Probably not, because people still go there and do not get sick. Was there a despotic ruler who killed everyone? If so, wouldn't he or she still be there? I believe the city is under a horrible spell. I visited London for just a few hours a couple of years ago, and while there, I started to feel unbelievably sad. I left immediately, but the sadness lingered for days. Now, somewhat rested, on day 3, remember 'tis night, for night is day and day is night. The cadre has a fairly short journey to Helm's Deep. This is good, for they must venture from Helm's Deep across Rowan during the day. The company is in very good mood this evening, as another group of fireflies has joined the expedition, and, with their remarkable procreative abilities, the population has grown to well over 300. The fairies, too, are very happy, for this route will take them straight through the middle of the wild weeds. You see, the wild weeds grow at the base of the White Mountains, and most pay them no mind or avoid them altogether. Orcs, ogres, and trolls are particularly allergic to the pollen, so they tend to stay away completely. Most insects find the pollen poisonous, so predatory birds also stay away. Nevertheless, the pollen has no effect on fireflies. So all our journey makers are safe. However, the wild weeds make the fairies exceptionally gleeful. Actually, quite giddy. They start laughing and giggling, flying in circles, flying high in the air and dive-bombing the others. Well, you get the picture. Meanwhile, the fireflies had a chance to rest. Among other things, they managed to increase their ranks by another 97 fireflies. Finally, Elliot says,
Helek, pienung kel egi kixit, es tu wapt kelmenung.
which roughly means stop and rest a bit. The fairies finally finish their frolicking, and the entourage proceeds on to Helm's Deep. In a few hours, at daylight, the group must travel across Rowan, as it is too dangerous by night. Helm's Deep is a fortress guarding the White Mountains and beyond. Helm's Deep, named for Helm Hammerhand, is a fortified gorge in the White Mountains located below the Thryhern. It lays near the West Fold and is the location of the Hornburg. Helm's Deep was first known to be settled by the men of Gondor, who constructed the Hornburg during the Second Age. When Calanodon was given by Gondor to the Ire Fed during the rule of Uril the Young, it became a stronghold of the Rohirrim. Our entourage reaches Helm's Deep and awaits the meeting with the Rohirrim warriors in the morn for the final portion of the expedition. On day 4, truly daytime, our travelers must make the dangerous crossing of Rohan. Rohan is a Manish kingdom on the northern borders of Gondor. It is the territory of the Rohirrim, a people of herdsmen and farmers. While known for their horses and cavalry, they were Gondor's most important ally. They were also renowned for their ability with bow and arrow. The name Rohirrim was mostly used by outsiders. The name they had for themselves was Ema, after their king, Elessar, who had first brought them to Rohan. The terms Riders of Rohan and Riders of the Mark are commonly used, but specifically refer to their mounted soldiers. These are the men our entourage are waiting to greet, as they have promised Greybeard to provide safe passage. No small feat, indeed. The riders were divided into 100 eards, and a full eared was 120 horsemen. Since the group had to cross the Brown Lands, a devastated region east of the Angoan, they were accompanied by a full eared 1,200 Rohirrim riders. About halfway across Rohan, they were attacked by a massive group of Crebanes. Crebanes were native to Fanghorn Forest and usually lived among other creatures peacefully. However, the Saru men, those evil beings, raised thousands of them for purposes such as this. They were coming from all angles, and the fairies could not use the cloak of protection in the daylight. Many fireflies were killed or eaten. Rhubarb day fruit suddenly flies directly in front of a large group of Crebanes and abruptly shoots down to within range of the Rohirrim archers. The most able archers shot hundreds and hundreds of Crebanes down, thanks to Rhubarb's valiant effort. Though there were fewer Crebanes, there were still too many to let their guard down. And they still had countless miles to go for Fangorn's protection. The Riders of the Mark battled heroically, whilst the Fireflies, urged on by the Fairies, flew as swiftly as they could. Just then, in the distant south, the Saru men released another 1,000 Crebanes. Yet, our weary voyagers were ever so close to the safety of Fanghorn Forest. They could hear Greybeard and the other Ents cheering for them. Within minutes, before the horde of Crebanes could halt them, they reached the mighty armor of Fangorn. The Ents cheered, and rightfully so, as the Firefly count was 297. Well enough to help the Ents live exceptionally long lives. Garanadaikan, the Rohirrim captain, shouted,
كل تحيتي روبارد دايفرو.
and all cheered. Rhubarb blushed. Fangorn Forest is a deep, dark woodland that grows beneath the southern misty mountains and under the eastern flanks of that range. The forest, known as Entwood in Elven, was named after the oldest Ent, Fangorn, or Treebeard. Fangorn Forest was the oldest part of Treebeard's realm, and it is here that the Ents retreated following the widespread deforestation caused by Numenorians. Fangorn is within the borders of Gondor, but few Gondorian or humans passed through until the wars came and the Ents proved themselves allies of all peaceful peoples of Middle-earth. The Ents ever so thanked the Rohirrim, and the Fireflies waved goodbye. The Fairies, however, after saying their very quick goodbyes, flew north to Lorien Forest, where the elves were having a beer festival. Fairies simply cannot pass up a good beer festival.